All right, everybody. For the past few weeks, we've been talking about perspective, and we've been using perspective to draw anything man-made or geometric in nature. It works really well for rooms, buildings, but we need to start talking about a new technique to start dealing with organic objects like this bird right here. So I've got a picture off of a 1982 Ranger Rick magazine here. I was 10 when this was published, but anyway, it's a really good picture as an example, so we're going to use it. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start talking about positive and negative shape. Positive shape is the shape of the objects within a composition. Negative shape is the spaces in between. And when we use both those shapes, we can start to draw what we see by using another technique called triangulation, where you find 3 points, and then we start to figure out negative and positive shape. So I'm going to start with basic shapes, and I'm going to show you how to break down this picture so that you can start to draw it. So let's go ahead and slide this guy over here as the center of attention for a minute, because the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start to break this composition down based off of what I'm looking at here. So if I go across the middle of this paper right here, you can see that's pretty much where the top of the wing is. If I come down the middle of the paper here, it's also going to give me a really good reference as to where this beak should go. And now that I've broke this down, I'm going to do the same thing over here on this paper. So I'm going to go halfway, and I'm going to draw a line horizontally. And then I'm going to put myself a line down the middle right here. Now keep this stuff really light, because this is just mapping out what we're going to do here. So as I start to look in this quarter right here, because we broke it down into quarters, I see that the head shape right here is circular. So I'm just going to drop a reference in there for now. And that's a positive shape because that's the shape of the head. I also see, if I look over here, that the wing starts right about where my line is that goes through the middle horizontally and comes just slightly out. And I'm going to look at past this line here, but I'm going to look at this shape too, because that shape right there is what's going to tell me what I need for that wing. So if I can recreate this shape, then I know this one's going to come down, and then I'm going to draw this shape of the wing right here. So once I have that like that, we know exactly where the wing is. We know where the head needs to end up at. So now I'm going to look over here at this negative space, and I'm going to recreate that. Because if I recreate that negative space here, looking like that, then I know the neck's right. And I know also that this is going to come all the way over to about right here. So we've got the curve of the neck, we've got where the wing goes. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this little half a heart right here that's in this quarter of the page, and I'm going to recreate it. Now once I've done that, I'm going to connect it down here to this circle, and we can see that we're starting to get the form of that body. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to bring this beak shape down, and it lands right here. So I'm triangulating because I'm going from here, here, and I figured out this spot here that's going to give me that shape. So I'm going to come down and try to recreate that shape the best that I can. I see this little triangle right here, so I'm going to come across and make that triangle as well. You can see I don't get it perfect the first time. I keep drawing until I get what I want here. So I'm going to bring this shape down. I can see the head needs to come down a little bit further. I'm going to start to put my smaller objects in. I always start with the big picture and work my way down to all these details. Because if I spend 30 minutes on this eyeball and then nothing else fits, I've wasted my time here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to look, and I see there's a shape like this right here. that if I traced through here, it would connect. Also, if I come through here, I also see that if we look at this negative space here, I want that shape right there. So now this is a much easier prospect to sit and draw this bird because we have all the major players on the board. I can see that there's another wing that comes up like this. I can start to work on some of my detail areas here now too. We can see that this is going to start here, come down like that. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to look at this black area here and start to try to recreate that. The nose is right on this line right here. So I'm going to bring that in as well. And we see that this comes up right next to that nose. So I've got all my major players on the board here as far as the outline goes. I can start to darken things down a little bit. I can start to shape things into what they're actually going to look like instead of just the basic shapes that I started with. All right, so this is where we're going to get as far as the sketch goes. And I'm going to talk to you about one other thing, and then we'll talk about how we're going to fill these in later. So don't worry about doing any of the shading on this yet, because we're going to have another whole talk about that. But the next thing I want to do is I want to bring this black piece of paper into play, because we're going to be doing some talking about value. We're going to start from two different ends. We're going to have a white composition and a black composition, and I'll show you how we're going to work that out. But what I want you to do is, this is just a normal pencil here that I have, number 2 pencil. I'm going to move this one out, and I'm going to do the exact same drawing again. Now, I'm not going to grade you on if these look identical, but this pencil here will show up on this black paper just as well as it does on the white, especially for our sketch. So if we go back to what we were doing here again, I'm going to put the circle for my head about where I think it should be. I'm going to come over here and draw this shape of the neck behind the wing, because as I do that, it's going to give me exactly where this wing should go. And then I'm going to look at this shape of the end of the wing as it comes off that line. I'm going to come back over to here, and I'm going to look at this negative shape again. So what we want there, this has to come around and connect to the head. I'm going to look at this half a heart shape here again, because that's a really important shape, but I'm going to get this little triangle right here first, because that's going to tell me where I need to start my heart shape. Now, I'm not going to just concentrate on that heart shape. As I draw that, I'm going to double check what this positive shape's looking like and if it's looking correct as well. So I've got the curve of the neck in here. I'm going to figure out where this beak needs to come down. There's one spot. It's going to come from here, and it's going to come from here as well. So with those 3 spots, I know exactly where this guy needs to come down to. I can start to figure out where this eye is going to go, because once I have the eye in, I can figure out some of the other details. This will come right back off here really easy too, folks. So just take your time and get your drawing in right. Now we got to come down here and look at this spot. And we need to look at this negative space right here. So as this comes through here, I know that if this is coming here, if we draw through, this would come out right about right there. And then I'm going to double check my negative space. So there's the two sketches that we're going to get. And once we get to this, we're going to start talking about how to use shading and directional marks to get all your value in here. Value is a degree of light to dark. So we're going to shade these in with value later on down the road. All we need right now is we need our light sketch and our dark sketch from an observable source. This is the observable source. I don't want you to make this up because you can't look at the spaces if you're making this up. It has to be a reference. So when you turn this into me, at the very end, I'll have this light copy, the dark copy, and the source material, all three, okay? All right, we'll get back together on this and talk about the shading at another time. This is where I need you to get for now, and I want you to do it by looking at these positive and negative spaces. Now, when you're doing this, use something that is a photograph. Do not use a cartoon. I don't want to have to sit and try to figure out how we're going to use value to shade in a cartoon that's usually just filled in flat spaces. So make sure it's a photograph of something. Animals are usually easier, a landscape, something like that. But make sure you have a reference source that you're working from when you do both of these drawings, okay? All right, we'll be back together soon. Hit me up if you have any questions.